Hi everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Tech with Genge. I will like to talk today on a topic which is very much important for those who use AI or AI agents, both personally and at work. And what are we talking about? We're talking of tools like Google Gemini, tools like Claude, and DeepSeek, and the likes. And the purpose really is just to explain how best you can use the tools to serve you in in the best possible way while maximizing both time and doing work effectively. Because it is one thing getting access to these tools, and it is another thing using them effectively. So if you don't know how to use the tools properly, you'll get you end up with more questions than answers. So I'll just touch a couple of points which I think are very much important in using these tools. And the first point that I'll talk about as I coined it is context is king. What do we mean by context being king? Effectively, if an AI agent knows what your project or what you are tasking it to do very well, then it is going to be very much effective. Let me take an example. You have a project, an existing project which has been built, and one way which you can make your agents to have context of it is you query it to go through, let's say, the whole project or the whole code base to understand what that project effectively does. Well, it might end up using uh, many tokens, but by letting it to understand the project structure and the kind of design pattern used within that project, it will help you better in the long run or while using that, because when you ask it to do, let's say, a feature or to fix a bug within that project, it knows the kind of design pattern, for example, or the kind of naming convention, or uh, or the standards, or how to document whatever functions or code. I'm speaking this in this case in terms of if you're using it for code, for example. So you understand those aspects better, other than if you started the querying the AI agent file by file. So when it has the whole context of the project you are working on, it will effectively answer your own questions or do the work better. And this in this case, we are talking of an existing project. Now, for let's say if you are building a prototype or a project from scratch, I'll take an example of such a trial that I made uh, with Claude. Was building a file transfer app, much like what AirDrop does on iPhones. But I wanted something which works across devices, whether Android to Android, Android to iPhone, and vice versa. So, how did I do in order for it to effectively build such a prototype? Now, you start by explaining exactly what you want the agent to do. You don't want to give it very vague information. You want to be as specific as possible so that your agent knows what you require from it. The more context or the more information you provide to your agent, then the more effective it is going to be in helping you accomplish your task. So that is the first point. As I said, that is context is king. Now, the second step, or the second notion, which I'll talk about, is be mindful of the permissions that you grant the agent. Now, this comes very much important, especially when you are working. Let's say if you're at work and you've been given access to these AI tools, you want to ensure that you give it the smallest amount of permissions, just the kind of permissions that the agent needs, rather than granting it full access to be able to do things like effectively do deletions, even in projects that are outside your, let's say, your code or whatsoever project you are working on. Now, if If you've come across some of these stories, you've heard of cases where uh, people granted AI agents or AI access to full access, autonomous access to their code base, and the AI agent ended up deleting files or code which it it didn't need to delete because it thought that it had been doing the best thing for these things. Now, the reasons for some of these things is that the people doing so, they granted the AI agent the ability to effectively do whatsoever it wanted, and the agent tried as much as it wanted, and probably, as you'd say, worked with impunity and did what they thought were best for the project. But you want to be able to limit the permissions to these agents as much as possible. This is from a security standpoint. You don't want you don't want an AI agent accessing as well files that it should not access. You don't want it accessing tokens or security keys that it is not supposed to access. So you need to limit these permissions just so that you avoid funny instances uh, that might come up. Now, the third point, which I find very important, is let the agent be a colleague. Now, what do I mean by letting the agent be a colleague? Now, you want to work with the agent as if it is your colleague. If you know, in programming you talk of pair programming, effectively it's a second person that you're working with, which means you query it in such a way that it doesn't just say yes to whatever suggestion that you make, because I feel most of the times like these agents try to please you. Let's say you could say 1 plus 1 is effectively 3, and you convince an AI agent to accept that. But you want you want to let it know that, oh, if you are wrong, it should let you know that you're wrong. So it should be able to critique the work that you do as much as you want it. Now, in this case, let's say if you had written code and you wanted an AI agent to review your code, you want to query your AI agent, let's say with something effectively much like you want it to be as blunt as possible. If it thinks that you made some crappy decisions in crafting your code, it should tell you that. It should critique that and point out these errors to you. So much so that the next time you're writing code, you know that, oh, this is or these would have been better choices. And of course, another thing too is you could tell it to provide you references why it thinks that these decisions that you made are not effective, or there is a better way, so much so that you don't just accept everything that that these tools actually say, because at times these agents can make up things when they don't exist. You've had or you've listened to the classic example that I heard of, where a lawyer used an AI agent to draft a document, and it made false references to documents that did not exist. Why was that the case? Well, it gave it effective access to do whatsoever, and when it could not find information that was relevant, it made false references and false claims about cases that do not exist. Now, you want to ensure that you are also reviewing whatever references or whatever uh, suggestions that the agent is being or the agent is making, and and the most effective way to that you could tell it to do is to provide references. References are very important, so much so that you'll be able to fact check whether the set information that it is providing to you is true or false, or it is just hallucinating. And that is another point. Yeah, so while making a video, part of it got cut, so I have to continue with the point which I was making. So the next point of using AI agents effectively is document the changes that are made. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, when you're working on anything or on a project, it is always good to document what changes are being made. Now, in a sense, what you want is that as changes are being made in your projects by you and the agent being your colleague, you want to document those changes. Now, it's going to help you in the nearest future when you come back to this project. If you're having bugs or if you're having issues with the project or if you want to make improvements to this project, you want to have still talking about context. You want to have as much context as possible on the project you are working on. So document the changes being made to the project. If there is a change which has been made which you think needs or which you see effective that needs to be addressed or documented just so that you don't get lost in the future, you want to document that or it will instruct the agent to document the changes. Yeah, so this is another thing. Now, the next point which I will talk about is that you make granular changes. What do I mean? Make changes as small as possible. The same way you're advised that you should always make small commits, or when you make a small set of changes, you commit those changes. Now it is just to have a chain of custody of what changes are being made so that at any point you can always revert to, to a previous version of your project. But if you make so many changes, let's say if in a go you make changes to 30 files, it means if you want to revert changes, a particular change following what you've done, you might have to do 30, you might have to reverse 30 changes. But you want to make the smallest granular changes as much as possible. If you make changes in 5 files, you want to commit that change just so that if you mess up at a point, you can revert to the previous version uh, of your project or your file. Now, the next point, which I find very much important, is that the agent or the AI is just a tool. You still need to refine your skills. What do I mean by that? You only be effective to use these tools if you have much knowledge about what you are working on or the technology you are working on as much as possible. So if anyone can pick up, as we say, anyone can whip up an AI tool and build an Android app or an iOS app. But now that is not the challenge with these tools. The thing is, how would you maintain this when issues start coming up with your project? Because the AI or the agent cannot address everything. When you start having bugs in your project, how would you address it if you don't have the knowledge about whatsoever you're using or whatsoever technology you choose to build a project with? Not just technology, but talk of things like design tools like Figma, for example. If you're using AI agents with Figma and you're very much new to it, you can whip up a new design, let's say for a banking UI, and it does that for you. But now, when you start having issues, let's say with animations, how would you go back to understanding what is happening? You can only do that if you have knowledge in a field or with a tool that you're using. You would only be effective if you have knowledge with that. That is why uh, you would notice that those who have skills in a particular domain would be very much effective in using tools or AI agents tailored towards that domain than somebody who is completely new to the field, because you yourself, you are a reference to the AI. So if you want to point it to documentation or to where it can have more knowledge on what or where it can find references, how would you do that if you don't know what technology you're working on? So, and how would you critique to the decisions that the agent makes? And now, I'll take a classic example when I think at the time uh, Google Gemini was still developing and it had very, I will not say very, it didn't have great knowledge of Android development when it had been integrated in Android Studio. You'd have Gemini effectively just make up stories or make up lies or use libraries that did not exist out of the blues uh, in, 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 in Android and make false references. And how did that work out? I had to, in some cases, correct it. I know the technology had just been developing by then, but if I didn't know some of the things that it was saying that were outrightly false, I'll just take it for its word, and I want to know what I'm doing. So I would have crashes, and I'll not understand why it's happening. Why? Because if I didn't know what I was talking about or what I was doing, I effectively just take its word for it. So having knowledge or refining your skill as you are using AI will also help you a whole lot. Now, two, it's just to this this point is just so that you also are not you are not being deficient with yourself knowledge wise, because things change a whole lot. If you are a programmer or a developer, you know that things change overnight a lot, and if you don't have knowledge with whatever you're doing, then you're effectively at odds with uh, not knowing anything. Now, the other thing which I'll talk about, which just came to mind, is that some people complain about the use of AI in their workplace, but at the end of the day, I heard someone say that if you decide not to use the AI tools, you effectively be replaced now by those who know how to use the AI tools. Now, you need to understand how to use these tools so that you are also effective at the workplace. That is why I think we've heard of companies now allowing AI tools to be used in interviews. So if you don't know how to use them effectively, then you are basically screwed. So it is also good for you to know how to use these tools. Don't be reluctant about using them. Go ahead, try the tools, and ensure that you know how they work, understand how to make them better suit your needs. Then at the end of the day, you'll be in a better position than not knowing at all. I think these points, to me, the ways which you can effectively use AI both at work and for personal use. And if you find the video helpful, please do share, please subscribe, and just share the word out there. So thank you very much. Have a good one.